Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge. I'm John Najarian. Pete Najarian will be joining me shortly to break down the biggest news stories of the day as they apply to the stock market, the macro minute, fantastic futures, and a little bit of sports too. Stay tuned for all of that right here on the Rebel's Edge. Bang.
We're less than a week away from the election, John. Should be pretty interesting. There's no doubt about that.
Believe me, I will be a very happy camper after the election. Number one, because I think my candidate is going to win. And number two, I am so sick of this BS. People pretending they don't know a joke if they hear a joke. People, attacking their fellow Americans and ripping up signs and things like that. It's like just so stupid. And I hope he crushes her in this, Pete. I hope it's a red wave. It could be. But again, you guys go out and vote. I'm encouraging you to exercise your right to vote. A lot of very good people have died for our ability to go out and vote in people we think will represent us. If you think she represents you, by all means, go out. If I think President Trump is the better candidate, that's why I'm speaking out as I am, as Grant Cardone has, and so forth. I mean, I think you have to stand up to the fascists, Pete, when they try to shut you up and say, wouldn't it be better for your business if you didn't support one party versus the other? Well, maybe, but I'm not just all about money, believe it or not. I want America to be better. And if you want America to be better, maybe you follow me, maybe you follow the other candidate. Whatever. It is, for now, still a free country, Pete.
It is. It's going to be interesting. I think it's fatiguing, and a lot of people are just sort of looking forward to this whole thing. But to your point, it's very important. So, you know what? One thing you can do is go out there and vote for the candidate that you want, and we'll see where it all finishes up once we get to that point. All right. I think we're ready for macro, baby.
Let's do macro, Pete. Macro minute from me. Easy is the GDP report, June to September. We only grew at 2.8%. Is that enough to change much in the way the Fed is leaning? Probably not much, but it is a 10% miss, lighter than the street was expecting, 3.1. So it's a little more than a 10% miss, but I don't think that's enough to change anything really. Perhaps it supports the idea that we'll get further cuts down the line.
And right now, speaking of that, that's the direction I was going to go in, John. November 7th, we got the Fed in front of us again. And they've gotten some of the numbers that they wanted to look at, and they're trying to make these decisions. But it was already swayed in one direction. It's gotten even bigger, John. It's 94.6% that they're going to do a quarter point. So as far as the cuts go. So that's right in front of us right now. I'd say those odds are pretty strong. That gives us a little bit of an idea of where the Fed stands right now. It's going to be interesting to see. I was thinking it would be a 0.25%. It seemed like a layup. It looks more and more like it is a layup. The fact that it's right underneath 95%, I would say that that's a very good chance that we're going to see that quarter point.
I agree, Pete. And the bond vigilantes still don't think that they should. The bond vigilantes are the people, of course, who put their money where their mouth is, unlike the Fed. And they have been saying loud and clear that the rates that the Fed has been cutting should not have been cut. The Fed will probably, as Pete said, cut yet again. But again, the bond vigilantes are not buying it. We're still at 4.26 today, Pete.
Yeah.
All right. Now for the sponsored segment by Hard Assets Alliance. And that's Hard Assets, plural, Alliance. Folks, do you want to go to a place where you get bids from 10 different dealers, bids and offers? That's what makes a market, my friends, having two-sided paper. That makes a market. They do that at Hard Assets Alliance. They basically are in the business of getting you the highest bid and the lowest offer. You go into other places, you're not going to do that well. I'm not saying they're the only place that you can get a square deal, but I'm saying it's the fairest place that we have found. And for that reason, we support them and they support the show. So go check out hardassets.alliance.com. You want to take delivery of gold or silver? You want to sell gold or silver? Do you want to put it in a Brinks vault? They'll do that for you too. Go check out hardassets.alliance.com. All right, Pete. Futures? Well, let's see. Bitcoin, 72,000. Gold, 2,790 to the ounce. So I'm going to say those two alternative and or safe haven investments, risk assets. Yeah, people like them, but I'm thinking they really like Bitcoin and gold right now.
Well, they don't just like gold, John. They love gold. I mean, it's a 52-week high, also an all-time high. It hit 28.01 today. So an incredible move to the upside there that just continues. It's been going on for quite a while this year, continues. We finally got silver on that same sort of a path. It's already made an incredible run just in a short period of time. I thought I'd focus again, like I do, John. I look at that volatility index all the time. And the fact that it cannot sustain over 20 just continues to be there. You know how long it was over 20 today? 10 minutes. 10 minutes it stayed over 20 and immediately fell right back down. I was talking to some folks out there that are very, very smart in the world of not only charting, but also looking at a lot of these various things like I do. They were basically pointing to the idea that they think that in the future, not too distant future, 13 to 15 is where we're going to be looking at the VIX in not too long. We'll see if that's the case. Obviously, we've got the elections to deal with, earnings to deal with. There's a lot of things going on, but it actually makes some sense to me. And the sustainability over 20 has been very, very difficult. It was a full 30 minutes yesterday. Today, it's just 10 minutes that it was over 20 and immediately got pushed right back down.
Volatility, Pete. V for volatility. Yeah. We will keep our eye on it. And Pete is one of the folks that watches that extremely closely, folks. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's talk about Eli Lilly, Pete. Disappointing earnings. Oh, my. I mean, the stock opened below 800. That's $800 per share. It closed last night at 900. So it was down below 800, traded down to 769 even, Pete. But it's made quite a recovery off of that, nearly $80 off of that bottom. Still down hard, still down 7%, but not as bad as it was earlier in the day.
Yeah, when you look at this one, John, it went down for all the right reasons. However, they missed it on revenue in a big way. They missed it on earnings also in a big way. They also cut the full year as far as the earnings guidance goes. They lowered the revenue guidance. I mean, there was nothing that you could grab onto that looked very pleasant actually in this whole thing. Trulicity was only down 22% in terms of the decline of sales there. So they are really facing some interesting things. And the other thing I want to point out, John, when you look at this, and you can't necessarily compare it to Merck, but I'm going to throw it out there a little bit. When you look at the PE of Merck, now they don't have the same drugs and the strength that Lilly has had all year. But nonetheless, I was looking, the PE of Lilly was 40 this morning, and the PE of Merck was 10. So it gives you a little bit of an idea when folks are looking for, well, where do I want to look in terms of value? Well, from a valuation perspective, Merck looks pretty good. They've got plenty of drugs too, but Lilly has been on top all year. They've been sprinting. The stock has absolutely ripped to the upside. This move to the downside of 100 points was pretty significant, I would say, and maybe a little overdone. And that's why we're seeing this start to creep up just a little bit. I don't expect it to get all the way back to flat anytime soon, John, but it certainly looked like it might have been oversold for the earlier in the day, for sure, when it was down 12, 13%.
Well, when a stock drops $140, a $900 stock dropping $140, it'll catch your attention, folks. Yeah, well. And Pete is exactly right. A 40 PE, maybe they're thinking they need to shrink that a little bit, Pete.
A little bit.
And that's what they did today, or that's what they're about doing. All right, let's talk about Garmin. These guys, Pete and I have spoken about them effusively, quite frankly, over and over again, because they had those little devices for your car, Pete, that now are replaced by what you've got on your cell phone, maps and so forth. Well, Garmin used to direct you to how to get from point A to point B before we had all these fancy cell phones and everything. Then they went into watches for triathlons and for Ironman and all that kind of stuff. Then they went into boating stuff so that they could basically tell you where the shallows were and where the mountains are and all that, whether you're flying a plane or in a boat, captaining a boat. They do all that stuff. Well, all they did was beat top line, beat bottom line, and guide positive going forward. That's the trifecta, folks. That's why the stock is up decently big today and still a stock that we both love.
Love it. And then when you look at this thing, John, I mean, the earnings were up 41%. The sales were up 24%. I mean, you look at these numbers, and as you already pointed out, the estimates, they crushed the estimates. They raised the outlook, all the things that you'd ever want. And by the way, from a fundamental perspective, since I brought that up with Lily and I was talking about that PE being a 40, how about this? Free cash flow, a little bit north of $1 billion. Cash to debt, north of $2.1 billion. They're up 21% today, John. The balance sheet is absolutely outstanding, and they delivered. There's a reason why this stock is trading the way it is right now. They absolutely crushed it. They also look into the future. Looks like they're going to crush it continuing. So there's a lot of reasons to like this stock, I think, going forward.
How about this reason, Pete? In 2021, I believe, or maybe it's further back than that. Let me see how far back my chart went. In August of 2001, it was a $9 stock. Today, it hits an all-time high, 207.
Whew.
So,
not bad.
But there's only 7 stocks that matter in the market. There's only 7. The Magnificent Seven. Really? How many of those went from $10 to $207? There's a couple, but this is a pretty spectacular performance by Garmin, and they deserve all the accolades any of us could give them.
Yep.
All right, let's take a look, Pete, at Reddit. Came public this year, of course, turned their first quarterly profit. They said that was because of AI content licensing deals, machine learning and translating their content into something that users and people doing AI searches can take advantage of. Huge. Well, take a look at this, which is also huge. Unusual activity, my friends, because ahead of this, we had strong, unusual activity. Stock closed yesterday at 81.74. Anybody want to take a guess where RDDT is or what the high of the day is here, Pete? Well, let me see. We hit 117 just a little bit ago. Right now it's 114. How'd you like to have a stock that goes from 80 some odd dollars a share to 117 in one day? And we had it. Bang.
And we know Reddit is what Reddit is. I mean, these guys are monsters. They've turned this thing exactly the way you're supposed to. When you become a public company, it's okay that you still aren't quite earning yet, but you see that into the future. Well, these guys didn't take long at all from the time that they IPO'd, John, that they got out there, and now they're making money. Just last quarter, they lost about 13 cents. Now they're making 16 cents. The revenue is up 68% year over year. They increased their active users by just under 50%. Everywhere you look in this one, again, very similar to what we were just talking about with Garmin, it looks fantastic. I mean, I'm looking at the 52-week highs that it hit today, and you just mentioned it, 117. I didn't even see it get that high. I saw 114. I didn't see the 117, but absolutely incredible. The forecast beat was only by 35%. They are doing everything right here as well. And you know what? I don't know that they need to slow down. It is something that people absolutely thrive to have. They love Reddit. They want to be a part of this whole thing. That's why those active users are growing the way they are. This is a company that is definitely in this marketplace. They are another one of the Magnificent Seven. I'm going to put them in there right now, John. They are a Magnificent Seven. Somebody in the seven's getting kicked out today.
Well, Pete, I'm going to say that a 40% move out of a stock that just IPO'd this year, pretty darn good. Pretty darn good in one session, folks, in one session. And God bless whoever it was that bought those calls and helped our subscribers get into that trade. Bang.
Bang.
All right. Let's focus for a second, Pete, on Super Micro Computer, SMCI. Now this one, wow, Hindenburg came after him, and I'm not saying Hindenburg's right. I have not seen their books, but I know who has seen their books, and they didn't like what they saw, I guess, and that's Ernst & Young. EY takes a look and they say, we're resigning as your accountant. We are not stepping into this mess. Shares trade down over 30%, SMCI, and the turnover, Pete, is something to behold today.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. The cash burn is there, John. The fundamental, the upside down kind of fundamentals that they've got look absolutely terrible. This is one of those names that was just traveling along until now. And this accounting thing certainly is reason enough, but you had Hindenburg, then you've got the accountants that are moving on. They're obviously going to try to move and shift to somebody else. Last I looked, I'm not sure where it is right now, John, but I last looked, it was around 35, 36 bucks, somewhere in there. The 52-week low and high was 23 to 123. That's a stock that's absolutely getting pummeled. And from the looks of it, for all the right reasons. This is not one that you're going to want to, try to get in there and say, well, I'm going to buy the bottom. Now, the one thing that I would say is all those shorts that are in there, and there are plenty, somewhere between 20 and 23 on the short side. I just wonder, when do they start to cover? And I'm not saying that happens anytime soon, because these numbers that we're looking at today look pretty damn god-awful. I don't know that they have to go in there and start buying it, John, but at some point they might want to cover some of those shorts, and that could actually put in a little bit of a squeeze at some point. It ain't happening anytime soon.
No, it isn't happening anytime soon. You are right, Pete. And it's a stock that many of us did like until we started to hear Hindenburg and others making noise about the accounting practices. And the stock was 122 on the highs. Like Pete said, it's trading 33 bucks and change right now. That's pretty damn bad. And that's after a big split as well. All right, folks, we are doing an election special tomorrow. So take out your phone and scan this QR code, because it will take you to marketrebellion.com/register. You don't need to put in any money, but you can join us. Grant Cardone. Grant was one of the gentlemen that was introducing President Trump in Madison Square Garden. Yeah, that's right. You think he knows a little bit about real estate and maybe investing? I think he does. And Pete and I, along with Mark Lepresti, will be there. It's 4 p.m. tomorrow, the 31st, Halloween. Woo! So you want to join us? Come on, hit that QR code. Go to marketrebellion.com/register. You don't have to put a credit card in. Just put your name and email address. We will email you an invitation, a free invitation to the event. We will also send you a copy, because we tape all of these, folks. So we send anybody who registers a copy of it. So if you want that free copy, or if you want to be there live at 4 p.m. Eastern, neither of them cost you a penny. But you can join us for a great 1-hour webinar from 4 until 5 Eastern time. Make sure you check it out. All right, Pete, give us a little bit of sports stuff, will you?
Yeah, let's chuck in a little bit of sports, John. We don't have to go crazy with it, but I just find this so interesting. I'm looking at the Kansas City Chiefs. They are the 7-0 Kansas City Chiefs. And yet, here's the interesting part, John. You'd obviously say, well, obviously they've got Patrick Mahomes and he is a superstar, which he is. And he's an MVP of Super Bowls. Yeah, sure he is. This guy has been an absolute killer when it comes to being a quarterback in the NFL. But, not so quick. Not this year, John. When you look at his numbers, he's got 8 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. He's got a passer rating of 84.9. He's got a QBR of 67. Patrick Mahomes is not the one leading this team this year. And that's okay, because they do such a good job with the Kansas City Chiefs on how they draft, the free agents that they sign. They lose a great running back in Pacheco, and they just say, next man up. Kareem Hunt, you're the guy. Next man up. Patrick Mahomes, you're going to have to run the ball a little bit more. Step up to the plate. So that's exactly what's happening. But, John, when you look at the defense of the Kansas City Chiefs, they are basically in the top 5 of the NFL in multiple categories, and they are the ones this year who are carrying the Chiefs. And I find it really interesting because they're giving up 17 points a game. Now, how are they doing that? Well, they're running the ball a little bit. They're not passing it as much. When they do pass the ball, they're going to a guy by the name of Xavier Worthy, who only is the fastest guy maybe ever in the 40-yard dash in the NFL, who, by the way, he replaces from a couple of years ago Tyreek Hill, who pretty much had that as well. So they've got the speed. They've got this burner out there. They can get him the ball once in a while with Patrick Mahomes. But the offense isn't the offense that they've been, so they lean on the defense. And that's why this team continues to move to the upside. They've got just about everything you'd want, John. They got 15 sacks. They got total yards, number 5 in the league. They're giving up a little less than 300 yards a game. They are doing it on defense this year, and that's the sign of a true championship team. When they lose a little something, they gain it somewhere else. That's what the Chiefs are doing. Everybody loves the defensive coordinator for all the right reasons. This guy puts them in the right spot to do the right thing, and they are doing it because the offense, people aren't recognizing this, they're struggling, which means there could be an opening in the AFC. Doesn't mean that Kansas City's cooked or anything. They're 7-0, obviously, but this is a year where maybe there are some other teams that could challenge them. Baltimore comes to mind. Buffalo comes to mind. Some of those AFC teams. We'll see how it all plays out, but even without Patrick Mahomes being the superstar that he is, John, it's an amazing job of coaching by the coaches at Kansas City right now.
Yeah, it certainly is, Pete. And I'll point out a little fact that I got over from our friends at Bleacher Report, Pete, and that is fewest games to 30,000 passing yards. Dan Marino, 114 games. Kurt Warner, also 114 games. Matthew Stafford, who went from, of course, Detroit to the Rams, 109 games. Patrick Mahomes, 103 games. He's definitely an elite company. He is also, as Pete said, not having his best year, but he might not need to have his best year. He's somewhere in the middle. I think he's ranked 16 right now of the 32 teams. So they can't be more in the middle than that, Pete. But all they're doing is winning. They're 7-0. So you Chiefs haters keep hating on them. They'll just keep winning.
All right, next up, we're going to stick with the NFL, and we're going to stick with quarterbacks, John. I just thought it would be fun to point something out because there were so many haters of a guy by the name of Kyler Murray. Well, he's too small. They shouldn't have picked him. They shouldn't have drafted him. Well, he's not studying. He's not doing this. He's not doing that. Well, that all was true. He is small. He wasn't studying. But it looks like, John, he's kind of figured out the NFL a little bit. And this guy is a guy that nobody's paying any attention to. We are, because we like to do that kind of thing. We like to isolate it on unusual activity. How about this for unusual activity? Not in the options, but in football. He's got 11 touchdowns with 3 interceptions. I would say that Kyler Murray is having a much different year than he has in the past. He's the QBR. He's rated number 3 in QBR. They've had some losses, but here's the teams they've lost to, John. Buffalo, one of the best teams in the AFC. The Lions, the best team in the NFC. Washington, another very good team in the NFC. The way they played, the way that quarterback has played has been amazing. Oh, and the Green Bay Packers at Green Bay, another team that has played extremely well. As long as they can keep that quarterback together, I think they're going to be a threat once we get into playoff time. But they beat up on some teams. They beat up on the Rams pretty good. They beat the 49ers, didn't beat up on them, but they won against the Niners within their own division, the Chargers, the Dolphins. So this is a team that's got a quarterback that everybody flushed down the toilet, said he's done, he's cooked. What helps a quarterback, John, is a running back. And they got James Connors, who's a tough egg. The guy went through cancer and all of that stuff out there at Pittsburgh with the Steelers and Pitt. And now he's out there in Arizona, loving life, 4.5 yards a carry, put up about 550 or 60 yards, John. They are running, they're gunning, and Kyler Murray is not throwing interceptions this year. So you got to point out when somebody's doing something bad, sure. But how about when somebody's doing as well as he is right now? He is really playing well in the NFL.
Oh, he sure is, Pete. And he's finally, because truth be told, he did not live up to that 5-year, $230 million contract extension that he got in 2022. So 2022, 2023, people were saying he's done, just like Pete said. Pete didn't say he was done, but people said he was done. Doesn't look like he's done now, Pete. Looks like he's a leader, and I think you're spot on with he just needed a good, solid O-line and a running back so that he didn't just have to do it with his feet, so that he didn't just have to throw the ball, 75% of the time. Now they can put up a much more balanced offense, and that makes all the difference in the NFL because that makes it tougher on Steve Spagnuolo, the D coordinator over with the Chiefs, or any other D coordinator. It makes it a lot tougher if they can't just say, well, 3 out of 4 times he's going to throw the ball, so this is what I'm going to do. If it looks more like, hey, half the time he's going to run the ball, half the time he's going to throw the ball, it's a lot tougher to defend. So Kyler Murray, great to see that young man doing so well, Pete.
And they helped him out, John. They got him a left tackle that can block a couple of years ago, not too long ago. But they also this year decided, you know what, we're going to go with the receiver. They got Marvin Harrison, one of the best there is. You give that guy the right tools, he's starting to show, you know what, with the right players, and they were a terrible team at one time, but with the right players, he can actually survive, and he can actually do better than surviving, and he's showing it right now. It's pretty impressive.
Very impressive. Well, folks, again, you should definitely avail yourself of that free webinar tomorrow with Pete, with me, with Mark Lopresti, and our special guest, our newest partner, Grant Cardone. This will be going on at 4 p.m. tomorrow, the 31st, Halloween. You'll also get a free copy of the presentations that are made. Just go to marketrebellion.com/register, or if that's too much for you to type, just scan that QR code and you can join us. Pete and I will be back tomorrow at 1 with more Rebels Edge. See you then.